Good evening. Welcome to this Scrutiny Committee meeting of Burnley Borough Council on the 19th of October 2020. Council members in attendance are Andrew Tatchell, Chair of the Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Marcus Johnson, Vice Chair of the Committee, Councillors Howard Baker, Councillor Paul Campbell, Councillor Tom Commis, Councillor Dale Ferrier, Councillor Andy Fewings, Councillor B. Foster, Councillor Shabana Khan, Councillor Gordon Lishman, Councillor Sherish Lone, Councillor Tony Martin, Councillor Lorraine Mahana, Councillor Andrew Newhouse, and Councillor Anne Royal. The meeting is also joined by executive members Councillor Sue Graham, Councillor John Harbour, Councillor Afrasiab Amwa, Councillor Mark Townsend, Councillor John Harbour, and Councillor Leanne Pate. Executive members are observing the meeting. Council officers in attendance are Lupin Patel, the Council's Chief Operating Officer, Howard Hamilton-Smith, Head of Finance and Property, Richard Brown, Community Safety Officer, John Clucas, Licensing and Compliance Officer, Wilma Waddingham, Housing Needs Manager, Christine Wood, Democracy Officer, Mark Heineman from the Graphics Design Department who's streaming the meeting, and Chris Gray, Governance Manager, who is hosting the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. This is the first of two scrutiny meetings this week. We've got quite a heavy agenda tonight, and of course the meeting again on Thursday. Item 1, apologies.
So I have apologies from Mick Cartledge, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2, additional items of business.
There are no additional items of business, Chair.
Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. I did get an email from Andy today.
Yes,
Chair, can I go ahead?
Oh, yes. I was going to go ahead, but if you'd like to go ahead, Councillor Fewings.
Thank you. Apologies, everyone. I've got quite a few declarations of interest here, so I'll try and rattle through them. So item 8 makes various references to Lower St James's Street and the finances being spent there. As I've declared a number of times before, my husband has a tenancy on Lower St James's Street, 160 St James's Street, via Creative Spaces Burnley CIC. He is the sole director and shareholder. So that's for item 8. For item 9, it also makes references to St James's Street, so the same declaration. Item 9 also makes references to the Historic Action Zone, which I believe is the Heritage Action Zone item for Lower St James's Street. Again, my husband has a tenancy on Lower St James's Street. He's also very involved in the arts sector, including assisting as a member of the culture programme for the Heritage Action Zone in a voluntary capacity, and the Heritage Action Zone Consortium as a stakeholder on the street. Creative Spaces Burnley CIC is also a stakeholder for the culture programme aspect of the Heritage Action Zone. In the same item, item 9, there's references to finances and Burnley Leisure. My husband has a discrete consultancy contract to finish the work of a member of staff who has gone on maternity leave for submitting an Arts Council applications for the Light Parade. The work is all done and completed, but due to COVID, Burnley Leisure hasn't been able to sign that off, which means that the invoice for that work is held up, so there's a financial interest there. Item 10, again, makes references to Lower St James's Street, the Historic Action Zone, which I believe is the Heritage Action Zone. Item 13, the licensing report. My husband has the premises licence for 160 St James's Street and also a personal licence in the town. And then item 15 is a supplementary planning document, and an application, a pre-application has just gone in on my husband's property for Park Avenue in Burnley. So I'm just declaring that we have a planning application in as well in relation to planning documents. That's all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, exclusion of the public. Obviously, as per agenda.
As per agenda, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Public question time.
No questions have been received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6, notice of key decisions and private meetings. They're all there laid out in front of you in the pad that came through. Before I ask for members' comments, there are a couple just that sort of stood off the page to me. One was the town report, which I'm guessing with the COVID restrictions, it's probably not ready as yet. And the Burnley Bay provision, now that's down for December, but we meet on the 7th of December, and I just wondered if there's any chance that that might be in for our meeting on the 7th. Those are my two. Any member? I'm not picking anything up, Chris.
No, Chair, no request to speak.
No. Okay. We'll move on then. Item 7 is Howard, and it's annual Treasury Management Report, review of activity.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this report contains details of the treasury management activity that was undertaken during the last financial year in 2019-20. The investment returns remained low during the year. We saw a bank rate drop from 0.75% to 0.1%, and that was in response to the start of the coronavirus outbreak. Also, HM Treasury imposed an additional 1% increase in PWB rates during October last year, which will have an impact on future funding costs for the council. The returns on the property fund investments were in line with the budget assumptions that were made for that year. The capital value of those investments was uncertain, and that was due to the coronavirus pandemic and their valuations, where we anticipate that these pressures will ease as the economy slowly returns to normal. So these types of investments are held over the long term, and we'll continue to monitor the position during this financial year. So all treasury management transactions undertaken during the year were in accordance with the approved treasury policy statement, and happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Howard. Any member?
No requests at this point, Chair.
No, I can't see anything there. Okay, thanks very much, Howard. We'll move on to item 8.
Yeah, that one is mine as well, Chair.
Oh, are you taking that? It's in Martin's report, but
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'll say that one. So this is
final
on
capital outturn.
That's the one. Yeah. So the purpose of this report is to report on the performance of the capital investment programme for the last financial year, 2019-20, and sought approval for the revised capital budget for the current financial year. Once the carry forward commitments have been incorporated into the budget. So total capital expenditure was 14.026 million for the year, compared to an approved budget of 15.543 million, which gives an underspend of just over 1.5 million. Of this underspend, schemes totaling 1.437 million have been requested to be carried forward into the current financial year. Individual schemes are shown in Appendix 1, and we've highlighted the main schemes in paragraph 8 of the report. So a proportion of this underspend was as a result of the delays caused by the outbreak of the corona pandemic. And carry forward requests will result in revised capital budget for the current year of 20.874 million, which will be the starting position for the Q1 budget monitoring report, which is contained elsewhere on the agenda we'll be covering later. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Yes, Chair, Councillor Baker is requested to speak.
Okay, Howard?
Yeah.
I think I've sorted myself out actually. It was just the figures for the actual planned outspend, if you will. And I was looking at 15,347 on the left-hand side, which was the final budget position approved by the exec. But I think Howard refers to final resources position at year end, 15,542. Is that correct, Howard?
Yeah, that was the.
Sorry, it threw me. I was looking at the big orange, thinking that was what we were comparing it to, and it sneaked in quietly beneath the radar.
Yeah, no, yeah, that is the approved budget position and financing position.
So we've overspent on the. Sorry, we haven't. We've saved. We're quietly anyway. Still below it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Okay.
Can I? I can't do the chat, so can
Councillor
I?
Foster, Chair.
Yes, go on, B. Up to you.
Okay. Can on page, and I don't know if it's right or not because I always find it very difficult to follow all this. Page 29 on the chart there. Can somebody just explain why we've still got money in Ward Opportunities Fund that hasn't been spent?
Yeah, Chair, I can answer that one. There was a small amount left at the end of the financial year, and that was outstanding commitments, which have all been spent now during this financial year. But there were commitments that couldn't be spent during the last financial year for whatever reason, possibly due to the coronavirus pandemic, and getting contractors on site on some of these purchases.
So is it showing, is that 14.5 at the end where it says slippage? Does
Yeah.
that mean we still have that? That's
It's been slipped into the current financial year, but it has been spent now. But those were particular commitments that are identified at the end of March. They need to be carried forward into the current financial year.
okay. And then just one for me, which maybe not for anybody else, but on page 33, the setting out there, I can't read that. It's too small, even with my glasses on. So I would appreciate really a bigger font being used for things like this, because it is important that we do see what there is there, really. Thank you.
Yep, noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bea. Any other member?
None at this point, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move along. These are 4 reports, all that went to the August executive for noting. Item 10, Capital Monitoring Report 2020-21. Howard again.
Sorry, Chair, we've got item 9, I think, outstanding revenue monitoring report.
Oh, sorry, revenue monitoring.
Yeah.
I got cut off halfway through that and it threw me.
So, thank you, Chair. So I'll take this one again.
Excuse me. Yeah, excuse me, Chair. Can we just confirm that at item 8, Councillor Fewings left the meeting, and he's also left the meeting for item 9 as well, that he's declared an interest on?
Yeah, I can confirm that Councillor Fewings is in the lobby. He's outside the meeting. I'll bring him back in after item 10 and then take him out at item 6.
Thank you. Thank you.
Somebody put me there halfway through the debate. I've got back in there.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so item 9, revenue monitoring 2021 Q1.
Okay. So the purpose of this report is to report on the forecast outturn position for the 2021 financial year, current financial year, and that's based on actual income and expenditure incurred and received up until the end of the June this year for the first quarter. So the current projections are, we're predicting a net overspend of 2.7 million, breakdown of which is shown in paragraph 12. And this is after taking into account 1.271 million of direct central government funding support. So the projected budget deficit equates to around 17% of the council's overall net budget. And this is arisen mainly as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Paragraph 11 of the report makes reference to a central government support package to provide some recompense for the income losses incurred by the council during the year. So just for further information, we've received guidance from the government now, and the council is looking to claim around 1.1 million through this scheme, and that would reduce the predicted net overspend to around 1.6 million. Now, of that amount, approximately 1.2 million relates to predicted deficits for business rates and council tax. The government has recently announced it's proposing that any deficits relating to either of those 2 items can be recovered over the next 3 financial years. So this would effectively reduce predicted net underspend in 2021 to be funded this year to 0.4 million, which would need to be met from reserves. So the government has recently announced further funding of 1 billion for local authorities, but we're still awaiting details of this, and we'll report back to future meetings, include that in future reports. And we'll continue to monitor the situation throughout the year. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Howard. Got Tony Martin to come in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I was very concerned about this report, because if you look on page 36 and second paragraph of the financial implications, point number 5, it does say we don't have enough money to cover the reserves. So in effect, we might be somewhat insolvent if we go ahead with all the things we're proposing to do in the future. It also goes on to talk on page 40 about some of the income we're expected to get into the authority over the last 12 months, and the majority of it, because of the in the service reports, because of the COVID pandemic, and I'm not blaming anybody in particular. I'm just saying though, the forecast economy and growth variance is 167 net overspend. The forecast policy engagement is 32 net overspend. The sport and culture is net 312 overspend, and so the list goes on. So in the light of some of the reports that we're going to be receiving on Thursday, I'm going to be taking a very critical view about what we're proposing to do, because the last thing I want to do is get this council into unsustainable debt. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. B, did you want to come in?
I did, please, yeah. Under page 35, under the purpose, page number 2, I'm just a bit concerned that, and I don't know where it all fits, but at our last meeting that we didn't have in September, we had a whole package there about the COVID-19 community recovery strategy. And I just don't know where that fits with what we're doing. It doesn't seem to be on the agenda tonight at all. And now that we're in tier 3, I really do feel that we need to be looking at what is happening with the recovery strategy, etc. really, with it.
Thank you. Lookman, did you want to come in?
Chair, if I may, I just wanted to answer Councillor B. Foster's question.
I was going to ask the same one, to be fair.
In terms of the community recovery strategy and the economic recovery strategy. In terms of the economic recovery strategy, members will have noted that it's on the next special executive or extraordinary executive meeting, which is planned. With regards to the community recovery strategy, that isn't on the agenda. However, some of the key items of spend which were seen as key spend which need to be undertaken have gone through a separate report which has been taken under urgency powers. However, with regards to the community recovery strategy itself, the executive want just to take a bit more time just to look at it in a bit more detail, and they are hoping to bring it forward soon. That is my understanding of it. Anything which was urgent has already been sort of undertaken in terms of spend wise. With regards to the more important point in terms of the response stage, I really agree with Councillor Foster that it's very, very important that we are continuing to protect the most vulnerable in society. And Chair, if I may, through you, I can provide a bit of an update for members in terms of what we are looking to do from a Burnley Together perspective in relation to protecting the most vulnerable. Can I, Chair, just give a very brief update?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. So members will have noted that we've entered the tier 3 restrictions, which are the highest form of restrictions in the country, in England, with regards to the coronavirus. And quite early on, we've identified that we need to engage with the most vulnerable in society a lot better and a lot quicker. So our Burnley Together hub has never closed down throughout the pandemic, and officers and volunteer organisations and other partner organisations are proactively engaging with those that are most vulnerable to ensure that they have essential supplies such as their medicines, access to fuel. We're also asking them whether or not they have access to a flu jab or would like a flu jab, because it's very important that we keep them free of other ailments and diseases as well. So we are taking a very proactive view in that regard. The emergency assistance grant, which some members had signed off who attended Friday's meeting as well, that has also been invoked, and as a result, we are providing food to the most vulnerable and people who don't have food with across the borough as well. I appreciate Councillor Foster's comment that a community recovery strategy is something that needs to come forward, and that's something I'm sure the executive will be bringing forward over the coming weeks and months.
Okay.
Thank you, Lockman.
Can I mention another one on page 42.
Okay.
I know that we're really strapped for money, but I just want to, under 6 green spaces and amenities, I just want to plea on the last line around the community engagement ranger post, that it says this position is not going to be replaced. I just have a real concern that our cutbacks, I know we're struggling budget wise, but what I wouldn't want to happen is all the face-to-face contacts that we have, which this community engagement ranger post is, are not being the victim of our budget to ensure that we keep all of our back office things. We have to just get the balance. We need people out there keeping our relationships with our residents, and the parks are just so important places and will become even more important, I feel, as we go on. Even in winter, I think people will try and get out in them. And to me, this post is really a really valuable one, really. So I just want to make a plea to whoever's listening. Please, face to face, try and keep it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bea. I think almost all the executive are with us tonight. Gordon Lishman, did you want to come in?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Sorry, I'm a little uncertain as to which microphone's working at the moment. I wanted very much to follow up on B. Foster's point and to underline it. Very particularly, though, to stress that the community strategy and the economic strategy need to be part and parcel of the same coherent Burnley Council strategy for how we come onto the next stage of the pandemic process. The health and well-being of our citizens is also a key part of how we can cope with economic recovery, and what we do about economic recovery will have a significant effect on the health and well-being of our residents. So we should be looking at those two things as part and parcel of the same process. I mean, I can understand that the new executive want to look in detail at both of them, possibly separately, but I would emphasize very much that the original proposal was that they were part of a single coherent approach. Second point I want to make is we are hearing references about when we get back to normal, and there is a question about the extent to which we will. That is partly about the progress of the pandemic and the extent to which we can hope to find a vaccine, unlike many other continuing diseases that for which we have not found a vaccine. But even if we do, there is likely to be a significant period of time which will also have a substantial economic effect. I saw today, and I'm sure that officers and members of the executive have, the county new aerospace strategy. I notice that they have already written off roles at Barlick. And when we look at the rest of the potential changes, particularly with the no-deal Brexit, that are going to hit the aerospace and automotive industries, particularly when you add COVID to that, the underlying threat to the economic and social well-being of Burnley is profound. And that's why we need an overall strategy, but that's very much also why we need all members of the council to engage with this in all seriousness. And I suggest lose, at least for the time being, the idea that somehow it's all going to be all right again in a few months' time. The threat is much greater than that. And just to ask on one point of detail, are we still going ahead with the commitment to the flu jab for members of staff?
Thank you, Gordon. Can somebody answer that one, Lookman?
Chair, I can answer that question.
Thank you.
Hopefully it will be available to officers over the next couple of days. There's just been a bit of I was going to say a teething problem, but it hasn't been a teething problem. It's about trying to access the flu jabs because they have been in high demand, and we managed to secure a provider who can provide it for all members of staff, and they should be available to staff over the next couple of days.
Thank you. I don't think anybody would argue with those comments, Gordon. Howard, did you want to come back in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just going to respond to Councillor Martin's queries earlier. With regard to page 36, it must be noted this report was written quite a few months ago and things have moved on since then around additional funding packages that the government has announced. One of those was the income compensation scheme for loss of sales fees and charges. So we're getting 1.1 million through that. There's additional package that we're waiting for additional details for. And the government has also provided some reassurance that any authorities that are placed within Tier 3 restrictions, they will cover and make sure that there aren't any budget deficits in the current financial year, and that we're able to set a legal budget next year. So that gives us some reassurance around the reserves position. And I think with the funding that we've had so far, that we've been notified of, that should bring the deficit down to around 0.4 million, which we would be able to cover by reserves. The other point made was around the potential deficits for certain service units. The majority of those projected deficits were around income losses. And again, those have been covered, or 75% of those have been covered via the income compensation scheme that the government has announced. We've put a claim in for. So we will be able to update that as we go through Q2 and reduce the budgets in those areas for the amount of grant that we're recovering. So those areas will look slightly better as we go through. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Howard. That's useful information. Councillor Baker?
Stick with the Howards there, unfortunately.
Well, that's it.
Too many Howards. We're getting too big. Lookman, it was Lookman Patel, really. Just listening to the flu virus, how many members of staff are working at the town hall and the departments actually in sight, if you will, and how many flu jabs would there be needed, and how we're going to get it out to the rest of them, which I believe is probably about 3/4 or 80% that's not actually working in the flat town hall. But if you can give me the full details, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Yes, I can, Councillor Baker. I was going to call you Howard, but I didn't want to confuse you with Hamilton's name.
Well, Howard 1 and Howard 2.
I think there'll be a discussion on who's Howard 1 and who's Howard 2. But in relation to the flu jabs itself, they're on a voucher system, and they can present it to a pharmacy, which is a recognised pharmacy with that voucher scheme, and they can basically tender them in to get a vaccination. So that's how it works.
Right.
So you don't necessarily need to be present at the time. It's not like when in the old days when you used to be at school and everybody used to get jabbed in the line. It's not like that. You can take it to a pharmacy of your choice, which is approved by the scheme.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Nobody else left in that one, Chris?
No, Chair. No further requests.
All right, thanks very much. Moving on to item 10, Capital Monitoring Report 2021, Howard 1.
Yep, that's mine again, Chair. You'll be fed up of hearing my voice by the end of this. Okay, so the purpose of this report is to provide members with an update on the latest position regarding the 2021 capital programme. So approval sought to reduce the capital budget for this year by 1.759 million, which will reduce it down to 19.115 million. The main reason for the reduction is a £1.5 million reprofiling of the Better Care grants budget, which will reprofile into future financial years. So that effectively reduces the budget from 3 million down to 1.5 million. And again, this has been due to the coronavirus pandemic and being able to get on site and contractors out. So progress against each of the scheme within the programme is shown in Appendix 1, and Appendix 3 shows the Council capital resources position, which is projected at the end of the financial year to total 947,000. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Is that one for Dale? Did you want to come in?
No requests received, Chair.
Oh,
Howard Baker is now Councillor
Howard
Baker.
Yes, Howard 2. Are you muted, Howard? I think Howard's muted.
About that, I was going to say, before B jumps in with it, you can't actually read anything on these pages unless you've got absolutely perfect eyesight, or a big magnifying glass. That's another alternative perhaps. But could we not have anything like this printed on A3 sheets or something like that? You managed to do it for the items on Thursday night, so you can read them, but I can't make head or tail of these because certainly can't read them anymore. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Howard.
Through you, Chair, yes, we can make those arrangements in terms of sending out agendas for appropriate spreadsheets, etc., to be blown up as best as possible to A4.
Thanks, Chris. Any other member on the report? No?
Unreceived, Chair.
Thank you. Item 11, final revenue outturn position, 1920. Amy?
Oh, that's mine again, Chair,
Oh,
unfortunately.
yes, you're Amy as well.
Yeah, I'm Amy as well tonight. So the purpose of this report is to provide members with the provisional outturn on the council's revenue account.
Excuse me, Chair. Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you confirm, has Councillor Fewings come back into the meeting? Because I don't think he declared an interest in the item, had he?
I'm just checking. He's declared an interest in items 8, 9 and 10. Yep.
Right.
So we're at item 11. I'll bring him back into the meeting, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt there. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
To confirm, Chair, Councillor Fewings is now back in the meeting. Councillor Fewings, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Back in the meeting, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to provide members with a provisional outturn position on the council's revenue account for the last financial year, 2019-20. So the final position shows a net deficit of 93,000 against a projected overspend of 140,000, which was reported in Q3 monitoring. So of the 93,000, 66,000 of this was as a reduction of budget pressures due to the coronavirus pandemic. So that reduces the real net deficit down to 27,000. We had requests for carry forwards totaling 47,000, which are detailed in Appendix 3. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Any member?
None received, Chair.
No, I'm not picking any up. Okay, thanks very much. Thank you. Howard, item 12, single-use plastics, executive response to council motion. I think that's down to you, Chris.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll take this one. This report responds to the motions put forward to full council in December 2019 from the Green Group on single-use plastics in the council, specifically requesting the introduction of an audit, reporting and publication scheme of single-use plastic consumption in the council, inclusion of provisions in licenses to occupy and procurement contract clauses that single-use plastics will not be used or generated, an assessment of the council supply chain, switching to suppliers that are as free as possible from single-use plastic and working to end procurement of such products, and through an education programme encouraging local businesses and residents to phase out or stop their use. And finally, to undertake a feasibility study to identify available council premises and provide financial incentives for community-run cooperative shops as refill stations, helping to discourage single-use plastics. The council continues taking positive action to reduce single-use plastics in its operations, including licenses for the Boathouse, Rotunda and Scott Park outlets, containing clauses that operators don't sell drinks in plastic containers and use biodegradable receptacles and products. This requirement will also be introduced in the Stables Cafe lease up at Townley Hall. Also, Town Hall vending has switched to biodegradable paper cups and wooden stirrers, and drinking water is supplied in the Town Hall by mains water dispensers. Green Spaces have reduced the use of horticultural plastics and are also working with user groups on plastic-free park, with free public bottle filler water fountains at Townley and Thompson Parks to encourage plastic container reuse. There is also a £20,000 allocation in the capital programme for this year for water bottle filler sites in both Padiham and Burnley Town Centres. Council has provided support, including business rate support, to a plastic-free refill shop in Padiham Town Centre, and is also working with market traders to reduce plastic usage. Changes in recycling services also means that single-use margarine tubs, ready meal trays and yogurt cartons can now be sent for recycling. In response to the motion, consultation with internal audit identifies that a minimum of 30 days, 30 working days, would be required to scope, develop and test a reporting and publication scheme, and also carry out a feasibility study for community cooperative shops at a cost in excess of £11,000, or estimated in excess of £11,000. There would also be an ongoing opportunity cost to maintain those schemes. On this basis, and that there is a lack of resources to meet these requirements, the recommendation is that these elements of the motion are not taken forward for approval at this time. It is recommended that where reasonably practical, action is taken to reduce or remove single-use plastics in the supply of goods to the council through tender specifications and tender evaluation criteria, and also in lease or tenancy conditions. It is also recommended that social media is used to raise awareness in the community, alongside establishing links with county-wide awareness activities to further promote the reduced use of single-use plastics in the borough. As set out in the report, the council is responding with a number of initiatives to reduce and discourage reliance on single-use plastics. Any response in doing this should be both practical and proportionate, and the focus of council resources is currently prioritised on its response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. I've got Dale down to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I heard a bit about you changing some of the materials of the disposal bags, like the cups and the stirrers. Assuming that will continue to try and seek out more sustainable materials for disposal bags, like cookery, for example.
Through you, Chair, yes, that is the case in terms of procurement activity.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Any other member?
Councillor Baker and then Councillor Fewings, Chair. Oh, sorry, Councillor Fewings first, and then Councillor Baker.
Thank you. Andy?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure everyone would prefer that I was still outside of the room as we go into this. In terms of this motion, I just wanted to correct a couple of things that were set out there in the summary. This motion was submitted in July 2019. It might have come to full council in December 2019, but part of the problem was that it took nearly 6 months to actually even be on the full council agenda. During that time, and I would have appreciated an acknowledgement in here that a number of the actions that were being put forward in the motion became somewhat superseded by the reflection of time. So, for example, having a report by March 2020 was no longer achievable. Also, in the meantime, a number of businesses have opened up with refill stations. So a number of the items in the report could have been taken out just with a sensible conversation between the proposer and seconder of this motion, the council officer, and the executive member that has the portfolio for environment. So that's a bit frustrating that we're now in a situation where we're talking about something that doesn't quite fit. So I just wanted to make that point. And I think just generally speaking, in the interest of openness and transparency and democracy, this motion is a perfect example of why people really do have a problem with red tape at councils and how it could take this long to come to a scrutiny meeting is quite beyond. The final point, and I'd make this with all due respect to the officer, that it would have been more appropriate, in my view, for someone with an environmental background to have written this report and been involved in it, and also have engaged with the proposer and seconder, because I think that we are somewhat wasting everyone's time with the response here, which could have been dealt with a sensible meeting for half of what's stated here. So with that in mind, obviously, talking about the substance of the motion itself, we are in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic, and I'm not sure how much that was discussed whilst I've been out of the room, but I imagine it came up a number of times. But what this motion and other items on the agenda, and just the general perception that I'm receiving from the council, seems to suggest that if we bunker down and we put all our resources into this coronavirus pandemic for a short period of time, then we will come out with sunshine and rainbows at the end of it in a couple of months' time, and the pandemic will be done, and then we can get on with other things. And I'm afraid that my view is that we're going to have to tackle very important issues alongside the coronavirus pandemic, and we're somewhat frozen and stuck in the headlights when it comes to really important issues like this and many other topics that I'm sure we'll hear. So I do think that we need to take a step back as a council and stop saying that we can't do anything other than coronavirus right now, because and so I would like us to really think about, is this going to be something that will be over in time for Christmas dinner? Or is this something that's here to stay, and we're going to have to adjust and work in the situation that we currently have, which is the feeling that I have. So with that in mind, the environmental, ecological, biodiversity and climate emergencies that we find ourselves in are actually the most important things that we should be tackling at this time. And whilst there is a more immediacy to the COVID-19 pandemic, the overall risk and the overall harm that will be caused to society as a whole if we do not tackle these very important issues is far greater for the climate emergency and the ecological crisis, the biodiversity crisis, than it is for the coronavirus pandemic, notwithstanding the fact that it is here right now and many people unfortunately have lost their lives. And I have a lot of sympathy with that, and it's awful, but many more people are going to lose their lives if we do not take the climate emergency seriously. So with that in mind, I obviously don't think the motion, the recommendation is acceptable. And at a recent member structures working group, I made the point that maybe this wasn't appropriate to bring forward in its current position, and that we should take a step back, remove it from the agendas, and have a sensible conversation about how we're going to address these things. I hoped that that offer would be taken up. I'm disappointed that it has not been. And I really hope that we've still got time before full council to make a change here and show that actually we are taking these things seriously, because at the moment we're making statements and we're giving false assurances that we care about these things whilst making no action to address them. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I know the council leaders looking on this meeting tonight. Howard, did you want to come in?
Yeah, basically just come in with what Councillor Fewings was saying. When this report started off, there was no such thing as COVID-19 back in June, and even in the council meeting in December, we'd never heard of it. To drag on for well over a year, then just come up with something to say, oh, we don't really want to do this because we haven't got the time to do it, is pretty poor. I'm not sure I agree totally with Andy on everything that he wants to achieve, but that's something else later on. But I feel it's a very, very poor situation that it takes 15 months for somebody to come up to say with something, yeah, well, we haven't really got time to do it anymore, or we haven't got the money. And £11,000 for something that we perhaps could save that kind of money in a short period of time on packaging coming into the council alone, it might pay for itself. So very, very disappointed in the time it's taken to come to fruition, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring Luckman back, perhaps to talk about the reasons for the delay. Paul Campbell first.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to speak on this, but to be honest, I'm literally lost for words. First of all, from Councillor Fewings, but then to be followed up by Councillor Baker, basically blaming the current position when literally where we are now, or what's happened for the last 18 months. That this isn't something. I can't. I'm even struggling for the words. It's just such a bizarre point to take. I think that what I'm taking away from this is the coronavirus happened, and hence the council officers could be, just in my opinion, be a little busy with some other stuff rather than chasing reports And I think, okay, I think you have to give them that. I think to say that this has just come out of nowhere and it's getting dropped on them is just a ridiculous thing. And I find even the fact that I'm calling something that Councillor Baker is ridiculous, even more ridiculous, because I normally have a lot of weight in what he says. Don't need to smile that much. As far as this being dragged out, I mean, I think if when this came to full council, and it was a long time ago, I was completely behind this. I still am completely behind this. I know a number of the Labour group are behind this. But just to reiterate, we have just had a change in administration, and I think for them to say we don't have the capacity to deal with this issue right now, I think is fair play. I don't think that's dodging the issue or sidestepping or anything like that. And again, to say that I don't know where this comes from, but to say that the council are working with a sort of a mindset that this virus is going to just be over it in a number of months. I haven't heard that from any officers. I haven't had that impression given. And I think what Andy said at the beginning of the meeting, I forget which councillor it was that said it, might have even been Howard actually, just saying, oh no, it was Councillor Lishman, saying that we know this is going to be long term. No one's, I think, got any ideas it's not going to be long term. Even when we get a solution, it's not going to be over. It's not going to just disappear overnight. I'm just at a complete loss that this is coming this way. And to say that the coronavirus at the current moment, when we've just been put into tier 3, when people are literally dying every day, should be put behind other things. Yeah, I know plastic is a big deal. Disposable plastic is a big deal. Lots of environmental and climate change issues are big deals, and they will kill us. But they're not going to kill us today, which the coronavirus is killing us literally today if we don't get a handle on it. And I think we need to get things and our priorities in order. The new administration has just come in. I think fair play, give them a few weeks to get on their feet, and then let's go at it again. But I'm just a bit, honestly, a bit lost for words for saying that this has been dragged out, and then to say that they're not stepping up, and again to say that the council are playing the council are playing officers like a short-term game, that they expect the coronavirus to be sorted by Christmas. I mean, I haven't heard anyone say that. I don't think that's how the council's coming at it. I'm just well, I mean, I've said a lot of words there, but I am honestly at a loss for words. Thank you, Chair.
Lost for words, yes, very eloquent. Thank you.
Councillor Baker, Chair, and then Councillor Fewings.
Yes.
So, sorry, either I was very poor in my explanation or your hearing's bad, Paul, but I wasn't criticising the council. Quite 100% agree with you. We get on with other things at the moment. My only point was, if we'd reacted to this report back in June, we'd probably have sorted it all out by December. That's the only point I'm making. It's dragged out now for 15 months, and it's not criticising that we haven't got the time to do it now. It's just that if we'd reacted quicker right at the beginning, we might have been able to solve this, put it to one side, and face COVID without a distraction like this. So no problems at all, and I totally agree with everything else you said, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale? Dale?
No, I don't think so. I spoke a bit earlier.
Councillor Fewings, Chair. Sorry, Councillor Fewings.
Andy and then Dale.
Thank you, Chair. It's a point of personal clarification. I'm just really surprised by Councillor Campbell's reaction there. I feel like perhaps Councillor Campbell felt like I was criticising the current administration, which I don't feel like I did. And so I just want to make it clear that I wasn't doing that. What I was saying was that it's taken a very long time to come here. And what has happened is that it's been replied to as if we're in June 2019 and has taken no account of all the changing circumstances. There's been no correspondence between the proposer and the seconder and the officers and the executive members, which were the previous administration's executive members. And that is a problem. And on every occasion that I had an opportunity to do so, I said, I appreciate that coronavirus is quite an important issue and that the bandwidth is being taken up and that we can adjust this and we can move it down the agenda, I offered to move it to December 2020 back in March. And the idea of that would be that we could adjust it to the current circumstances. So my frustration is just that it's been responded to as if we have proposed this now during the middle of a pandemic, and that isn't an accurate reflection of what has actually happened. And then my second point that I wanted to pick up on is that I feel like I've been chastised a little bit for not knowing what other councillors have said during a meeting where I was excluded from the room. I made it very clear that I discussed that COVID-19 would have been discussed quite a lot in my absence, but I had no idea what had been discussed. And so my point was literally that I don't think this is going to be over quickly. And whilst everyone is rightly prioritising it, and it's a very important issue, we can't lose sight of the fact that we need to deal with other things at the same time. So be it environmental issues or homelessness or the jobs crisis, we have to be able to deal with other things as well as this crisis. That was my point. I'm sorry if Councillor Campbell felt like it was a personal attack to the Labour Party or the new administration. It certainly wasn't intended in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Not your comments. Dale?
I mean, in general, I sort of agree with the clarification Councillor Bacon made. Yes, we could have acted on this a bit quicker and got a bit further down the road earlier on, but we are where we are really. And it is actually a little bit encouraging to see that there is a certain degree of movement on this, even despite the COVID crisis we're facing at the moment. But of course, scanning over that report, and considering we do have COVID, like you say, we needn't have actually processed this idea as heavily with the audit reports and things like that making public, but we can actually make progress as it is, like we are doing, by the staff in the council seeing things in their department and thinking of ideas and saying, oh, we can change this. This is a single-use plastic, or we can change that. It was an idea that was sort of followed in a company I used to work for some years ago. They're trying to save money, and they call it EMIT, I think. And the idea was that each department would have to come up with ideas on how the company could save money. So in this case, each department in the council can move forward with this idea, potentially. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dale. I'm not picking anybody else up, Chris, is that?
No, Chair, no others at this point.
Okay. Thank you very much for the debate on that. And I know that the council leader and portfolio holders are looking in on that. There still may well be some mileage in it. I do take Andy's comments on board. Moving along to item 13, Licensing Act 2003, Burnley Borough Council Licensing Policy. That's John.
Chair,
excuse me,
Chair, I'll just place Councillor Fewings into the lobby. He's declared an interest.
Okay.
Oh, of course.
If you just bear with me, I'll confirm when that's done.
Chair, just a quick one. I had a brief message from Democracy earlier. I just wanted to clarify something, that because I'm the chairman of the local Conservative Party Association, and we have a gambling licence to run a 59 club that we run. He reckons that's probably an interest I ought to declare, really.
Chris?
Yeah, I'll place Councillor Ferrier into the lobby. If you just bear with me, he's declared it. If you can note that, please, Christine.
Thank you for that, Dale.
Thank you. I will do.
I can confirm, Chair, both Councillors Fewings and Ferrier are now in the lobby, so okay to continue.
Thank you. Okay, over to you, John.
Good evening, councillors. My name's John Clucas, licensing officer working for the council. I'm just undertaking the council's responsibility under Licensing Act 2003 to publish every 5 years a licensing policy. The policy is due for renewal in early January, and earlier on this year I began the process to do that. That's gone through the various consultation panels. It's been out to formal consultation. It's been amended and improved upon, and that went to Colleagues Committee, the Licensing Committee, on the 16th of September, and their recommendation was to the council that this is approved and is implemented as soon as possible. So if your colleagues feel it's fit to approve, it will obviously then go through to executive and then the full council, and then it can be then put in place by at the very latest January, possibly before then. You should have had a copy of the report and the amended policy together with the updates as a result of the consultation period. That's all contained within the report that I've done, and I'm happy to take any questions should there be any from any members.
Thank you, John. We've got all that paperwork through. Any member?
Can you
Councillor
see?
Foster, I think, Chair.
Thank you.
Over to you, B.
Yeah, I'm just really pleased to see certain amendments to this because John's been dealing with an issue in my ward that has caused quite a lot of upset for residents. So on page 96 under 7C, 7.3, the added words there are very, very helpful indeed. And on page 97, 7.9, the added word would is really good. So I just want to thank John for all the work he's done in that very sensitive and difficult, challenging situation that we've had. And this is very welcome for me and will improve the situation in the future for residents to be able to ensure that they're okay in an area where licensing is happening. Thank you.
Thanks, B. I'm sure John appreciates those comments.
Thank you, Councillor.
Any other member?
No requests received, Chair.
Okay. Thanks for the report, John. It's endorsed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You just bear with me, Chair. I'll bring Councillor Ferrier and
Oh, yes.
who's back into the meeting.
It's cold in the corridor.
Chair, Councillor Fewings and Councillor Ferrier should be back in the meeting. Yeah, I can see Councillor Ferrier. Councillor Fewings is here as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we're back at full strength. Item 14, draft homelessness and rough sleeping strategy 20 to 25. Paul Gattrell.
Hi, it's Wilma here. I'm standing in for Paul tonight.
Okay, well.
Hi. This is a report to seek approval to conduct a consultation process for a draft homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. The purpose of the consultation is to ensure that the council meets its statutory duty by producing a homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. And it will allow the partners and stakeholders to have an input into the final document. And then by this, that will then ensure that the strategy is fit for purpose and it's effective in preventing homelessness and rough sleeping in the borough. It's a 5-year strategy. Any questions?
Thank you. Any member?
Nothing received at this point, Chair. Oh, yes, Councillor Foster, sorry, he's signalling.
Yeah.
B might come in.
Yeah, I have quite a bit to say on this. Sorry about that, everybody.
That's fine. That's fine.
It's evident that this report is very thorough and that a lot of time, effort and research has evidently gone into it. As some of you will know, I've been on a small working party for a bed every night project. As part of this, I've spoken and met with many partner organisations, both statutory and voluntary. All are doing tremendous jobs in very difficult circumstances. I've been out with one of the navigators to one of the drop-in places, and everybody agrees, including with the report, that what needs to happen is very much that people need to be supported before they become at crisis point and become homeless. So this brings me to what I feel is the missing part of the jigsaw in the strategy, and which you highlight yourself in page 115 in your introduction. It's the last paragraph, well, next to the last paragraph on page 115. the people at the moment who do this, who try and identify people who aren't homeless, are the navigators. But what I've found out while I've been looking around is that I haven't understood that the navigators go over an area which is Burnley, Pendle and Rosendale. And for me, what's needed really is to fill the gap is a dedicated role of our own within our own housing department as an outreach worker who will go to all the different groups, voluntary and statutory, that hold drop-ins for people who are very vulnerable and who are maybe near to being homeless, to be able to build relationships and identify residents who are at the risk of becoming homeless. And this can only be done by a regular attendance at lots of these different groups that are active in Burnley in support of the homeless and the hungry. So I think, and in some sense, this is linked very much to what Gordon was saying and to the COVID situation about the economy and the health being balanced together. Because if we're really serious about solving the homeless and the rough sleepers in Burnley, then we need this person in there at that first point of contact, building relationships with people who are likely to be in the system, let's say, in that cycle. So, and I think we could maybe find some money from the extra money that the government have given, sort of thing. The other thing that I just wanted to ask was under the action plan on page 17, if I can find it again, sorry, because there's so much paper. It does say about the bed every night, but under when it will be, it says short to medium term by the end of April 2022. I was hopeful and I'd sort of been led to believe that the 10 beds that were going to be under this scheme would be up and running ASAP, really, particularly as going into the winter period. Very much so. We are, you know, when I was out with the navigator, we found a person who needed that bed every night. That night, they were going to have to go and sleep on the streets because there wasn't anything available. So I've seen the need for myself. So thank you.
Thank you, Bea. Before I bring Wilma back and as Howard to speak, can I just compliment you on the hard work that you're obviously doing. Myself and a lot of other councillors have looked at this, and we appreciate the hard work you're putting in. Now we're not doing financial reports, Howard. You'll be Howard 1 now and you can come in.
Oh, good. Promotion again. Thank you, Chair. Just to say, well done, Bea. I'm sure it's brilliant what you're saying, but the purpose of the meeting tonight is just to put this report out for consultation. You've jumped to the next stage where your answers from the consultation have come back already. So you really need to bring all those back in during the consultation period rather than comment on it all now. That's what I'd like to say, Chair.
I think that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Wilma?
Yeah, I'll just, on the last point about a bed every night, all 10 beds, it is hopeful that all 10 beds will be up and running by the end of November.
Oh, thank you.
When we're setting out an action plan, we have to put sort of whether it's short term, medium term or long term. We started working on this last year sometime. So again, when this was first started working on, we didn't even have anybody who could do a bed every night for us. So that's probably why it was put into there. But the hope is they're actively looking for properties at the moment, and the hope is we will have all 10 up and running by the end of November. We are very aware that we're coming into the cold weather and we need to have something in place for that.
Great news. Thank you, Wilma. Great.
That's excellent. Are there any other members?
Yes, Councillor Fewings, Chair.
Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. I actually think that Councillor Ferrier also has an RTS, so I just want to flag that it was before me. I'll just go ahead just to keep things brief. I wanted to add my thanks to the officers. Thank you so much for the hard work that you've done on this. And I also have a very similar point to Howard, that this is the outset of a consultation. The point I wanted to make slightly links to a point on the agenda later on, which I will be excluded from the meeting for. But this isn't about the substance of that, which is that at a scrutiny meeting just like this, we discussed it going out for consultation. And we said that it would come back with the responses with enough time for a working group to be set up from the scrutiny committee to look at it, look at the responses, and then come back with a recommendation. For that item that's on the agenda, we have it back tonight. The executive for it is tomorrow, and the full council is within a week. So we were unable to do that, even though we agreed that that would happen as a scrutiny committee. And so what I'd like to happen for this is urgent, and we can build those timescales in now. It's really important as we move into winter, and we're about to suffer an incredibly difficult time with the jobs crisis that is on our doorstep, that we look at this as quickly as we can, but we give time for the scrutiny to actually happen rather than it being the night before the executive meeting. We've talked over and over and over again as a scrutiny committee how that is an unacceptable situation, and I'm sorry we're here again, possibly because the administration changed, and I'm not blaming them.
Thank you.
New administration for making. Can we have time to consider these things properly?
If you want to keep your powder dry on that one, on item 17, I have a proposal that runs in line with what you just saying there. Dale?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Funes, for mentioning it. I'm about to repost my RTS. Okay, I mean, first of all, my apologies already if it is mentioned in the report, because like B said, it's an extensive report and it's substantial work's gone into that. But I was wondering if there's any on the scope with working with the MOD, because obviously a big area of homelessness is the ex-military veterans coming out of the military, basically dumped into a civilian life. And of course, when they're in the military, things like housing, board and lodgings, and all that, it's all catered for them. So it's obviously a bit of the deep end, isn't it, when they come out of onto Civvy Street. So I wonder if there's any link with the MOD in supporting guys that are coming out of the military and back into civilian life. And secondly, I was wondering if there's any scope towards working with schools to try and educate, particularly more senior high school children, on what homelessness is all about, especially some of them who are going straight away into the world of work at 16 and may even be leaving home sometimes, not long after that. I think it's valuable for them to understand what it means in paying the rent or whatever they're going for, and basically what support is out there if they find themselves in a sticky situation, basically. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So to round the debate off,
Chair, Councillor Listman's just
sorry.
to speak.
Didn't
Thank you,
see you
Chair.
there, Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. I thought you were going to round me off.
I didn't see you there. Sorry.
Well, I think you and I might be rounded off already. I wanted to comment, like others, just quickly on the quality of what we've received. And I think it is worth saying that this is an example of officers working together across departments, bringing in other organisations and working with them to produce a coherent overall approach to a major problem. It was helped, I think, by, at the first stage, bringing together a working group of members of council. And in the context of what Councillor Fewings was just saying, I wonder if that it is intended that that working group will continue to look at the consultation responses and to look at what's going to come out. We have, I think that group has already demonstrated that it can make a significant and useful contribution by doing that. I want to make another point. It is one to which I think the new administration might be more sympathetic than as a group would have been 6 months ago. This proposal came to us as an amendment in relation to the budget. In fact, what we've now got is a substantial improvement on the relatively simple single issue which was brought up at that time, and it's enabled the council to come together and address a coherent overall strategy. I would suggest that although we politicians might quite like the opportunity to score a few points by bouncing something in on the budget meeting, it would actually be better policy making and better for this council if we had the opportunity before matters were bounced in at the last minute as an amendment to bring ideas forward, to find ways in which we can bring different members of the council together across different political parties to talk about the strategy and to discuss with the relevant executive member and the head of finance the ways in which we could help to make that strategy happen. And that's a proposal for about how we do things in future. And I think this proposal and this strategy that we've got before us is a good example of how that sort of approach will work better in the interests of our residents.
Thank you.
Can I just, it's Wilma, can I just answer, is it Councillor Farrier? You talked about the MOD in the schools. It's just to say we have previously in the past, we have linked in with schools, and we do still keep trying to do that. It's, for some reason, it's always been quite difficult, but we have paid people to go in the schools in the past and speak to years, I'm talking old school now, so year 5 and the first year at college. And we still do that whenever we can actually get somebody into the schools. But as I said, it is, for whatever reason, it can be quite difficult to access the schools. With the MOD, there is potentially a new supported housing project opening up at the old Elizabeth Street hostel, and that's Healthier Heroes, which is all for ex-veterans, and we are already linking him in there with the gentleman who's setting there up and running, so hopefully we will be able to help there as well.
Thank you. I've heard no dissent at all. In fact, it's been a very positive debate. Can we take it that we approve the consultation strategy and process to start? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to item 15.
Item 15, Chair. Sorry, Chair. Councillor Fewings has declared an interest in item 15. I'll just into the lobby. Councillor Fewings is now in the lobby, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 15, air quality management, protecting health and addressing climate change, supplementary planning document, SPD. That's Kate. Is Kate here tonight?
She's not in the meeting, Chair, now.
Oh, Peter Millwood?
No, Chair.
No, who's presenting that one then?
Chair, I don't think we've got anybody online. I've just been trying to sort of look through the participants. If members would like to sort of give me any questions they've got, and I'll try and get them answered as quickly as possible tomorrow if I can.
Okay.
Does that sound like a way forward?
Well, it's the way forward we've got. Howard, did you want a question?
Yeah, it's not so much of a question, Chair. I'd like to propose that this delays going to the executive till we have had a chance to do it. We've got this coming up all week with massive reports with quite a lot in them. No time to talk about it. No one's to explain to us about what the heck's going on with it. Everybody's trying to understand the things on their own. I mean, I'm thinking of the Thursday night ones in particular. Quite hard to understand without any. We really need an evening from officers to talk us through what's coming up, etc. So I don't think it's right to say make a decision on this and let the executive decide on it tomorrow. It just seems wrong. We said, like Andrew Fewing said, we'll get the consultations back and all the other bits and pieces. Then we'll have a look at it for a few weeks to see if we've got any questions on it, and then we'll put it through to the exec. To bring it back the day after to executive is just not acceptable, Chair. To me.
I do have some sympathy with that view. Would it be possible that we could hear this on the 7th of December? Is it necessarily going to the executive tomorrow?
Chair, it's Luckman, and what I was going to suggest is if the executive are okay with it tomorrow, the scrutiny committee suggests it comes to the Thursday's scrutiny meeting, and we can take it on Thursday's scrutiny meeting.
No, I prefer 7th of December if we can actually do that.
Yes, Chair, we can't get any more in on Thursday.
On Thursday in any case.
Oh, hang on. We might if we bump them back 2 weeks.
We all speak at once.
Sorry.
It's all right. I think the 7th of December will be more appropriate. I mean, all we're doing is knocking it back 3 days. And it is a very heavy agenda on Thursday.
Chair, I don't have the answer in terms of how time critical this is. I can take it back and I'll report back to you, Chair, tomorrow, and then you can make a decision on it tomorrow if that's okay. We note the Scrutiny Committee's recommendation that it's taken to December scrutiny meeting.
Okay, well, fine.
Chair, Councillor Listman has requested to speak.
Okay, Gordon? No, he doesn't want to speak. He's waving.
It's withdrawn, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. We'll speak tomorrow and I'll report on it on Thursday. Item 15, no, it's no. Item 16. This was one that I was asked by members to have a look at scrutinising rather than do a group. We've actually got a report. Gating public space protection order.
To interrupt, has Councillor Fewings come back into the room?
He has.
He just came up there that he'd come in. Yeah, okay.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
That's all right. Gating public space protection order. Is Richard Bryan with us? I think I saw
I am
that
indeed,
earlier.
Chair.
He is, Chair.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Chair. The report that that you've got before you is relating to a piece of work that has been carried out by all local authorities across Lancashire over the last year, relating to an issue that's probably the most pertinent part around gating, which is looking at the expiry of the first tranche of public space protection order schemes that are basically the old gating order schemes that have carried forward. So for Burnley, that's a few dozen schemes. For other local authorities, that could number in the hundreds. So it's been a piece of work that's been looking at how do we more efficiently manage the legal and strategic side of gating. So it doesn't necessarily relate or affect anything going forward for residents, but it is how the legal aspect of the gating orders is managed. So it's an approach that's been taken by all local authorities, and rather than having a couple of hundred individual orders relating to each individual scheme across the borough, the proposal which is going to executive is that there will be a borough-wide gating order under the Public Spaces Protection Order legislation, which will encompass all schemes with the exception of those that date back from the early 2000s that were highway extinguishment orders. So that will encompass 102 schemes currently and any future schemes that are brought in. Like I say, it doesn't affect anything in terms of criteria of selection or the day-to-day running of the schemes or anything like that. This is how to manage the legal aspect of that backs up every scheme in the borough. Now, obviously what that does mean is that going forward, there will only be a renewal of the order once every 3 years rather than every individual scheme. So what has been in the pipeline, working with other street scene officers, is developing a comprehensive review process for individual schemes to ensure compliance and make sure that the schemes that are in existence, because they have been there for, some have been there for 15 years now, are still appropriate, fit for purpose, and serving the purpose, basically doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that was a piece of work that was being carried out by street scene officers. That has been carried out with street scene officers to identify schemes across the borough that are struggling to put them through a review process. It was hoped that we would have already commenced this. The work had been done to sort of set the process in place, but obviously we've had, as has been mentioned numerous times this evening, we've had rather high impacts on the council and the council officers' work, so it has been put back. Where that is unfortunate is that schemes that are deemed after review still not to be meeting the standards expected, we do have the power to remove them, and the plan is to put those resources into other areas that where they would be more appropriate. We still have an exceptionally long waiting list for interest from across the borough, from every ward, so there's still about 90 applications on file. So the rolling programme continues through the capital programme, and between the new way of working in terms of the legal side, the review process, I hope that we can better, better put those resources into some of those areas where they might work, and remove some of the schemes that haven't been working in recent years. Okay, if there's any questions.
Thank you. I got quite a few phone calls. That's why I asked for the report to come in the first place. Paragraph 10 I thought was particularly good, in as much as it shows us a way forward. I mean, there's a history to this, I know, but it does open the door, and the executive will be looking at a review, which is, I think, what the other councillors who aren't on the committee were looking for. I'll take any questions.
None received, Chair.
Chair, I've put in an RTS.
And I'd like as well.
Okay, that's Andrew and B.
They've just arrived now, Chair. Apologies.
Right, Andy.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to talk about paragraph 10, actually. So it's potentially going to kick off a review that could result in more difficult schemes that being classified as failed schemes and having the alley gates removed. And what I would like to see is a recommendation that this is really thought through. If there is a scheme that is slightly more resource intensive, that could be because it's really important that we put those resources into that area, because if you have an area where you put up the alley gates and there are literally no problems whatsoever, then it probably shouldn't have had alley gates in the first place. I mean, we're talking about back streets that are difficult, and that this is not just going to deal with it overnight. So what we really need is a coordinated approach from the police, from selective licensing, from the street scene collections team, to make sure that the reasons why schemes might be removed are not because of an alley gate reason, sorry, let me say that again, are not because of a reason that is not to do with the alley gates, but is because, for example, there's a problem tenant in a selective licensing area that hasn't been dealt with through selective licensing that keeps stealing the padlock, something like that. And so what I don't want to see is there's more problematic areas just automatically losing their alley gates, because that is less resource intensive to the team, and I appreciate it must be frustrating, but it's those areas that have complex socio-economic circumstances that need the alley gates in the first place, and therefore we need to put effort in to make those schemes work as well, using all of the departments that we can. So I just want to hopefully temper that ability to just remove schemes because they are difficult.
Yeah,
I'm sure it'll come to us before it goes to the executive in any case.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may respond to that, Chair. Just briefly, I mean, Councillor Fewings, you're absolutely correct in that gating, by its very nature, the resources are put into those areas that require it. That's the selection process that it exists. It's done on the basis of an analysis-driven process. So they're not going to areas where there aren't crime. Otherwise, it wouldn't fit the criteria of the legislation. But also, there's an assurance from council officers that any review that does take place will not be a fait accompli, that we identify a scheme and it's our intention to take it out. No, it would be to do that proper root and branch review of the scheme with partners and ward members to sort of engage the community to get it back on track, because there is a reason that the gates were put in the first place, and it was because of high levels of crime and antisocial behaviour. So there is the commitment to do everything to get the gates to work, but we mustn't lose sight of the fact that sometimes that must, even that may not in the end be fruitful. So, but it would not be a short process. It would be a lot of work going to any review of schemes.
Thank you. B, did you want to come in?
Yeah, it might be me who's not understanding, Richard, so I'm really sorry about this. But can I just clarify? Is it saying that at this moment in time, the Alligates do not have a public spaces protection order on them, and that this is going to move them? Because it says under reasons for recommendation under 3 that it's going to be transitioned to PSPOs. Is that so?
No.
Are they not under PSPOs at the moment?
They are all under public space protection orders, but there is 102 public space protection orders, and each one has a 3-year life cycle, at which point it needs to be renewed. So rather than spending 6 months of the year renewing lots of orders,
yeah,
as it will, as the schemes continue to grow, and we're getting to a point where it's to bring it all under one borough-wide order.
Yeah, I understand that bit. It was the.
But they are all under existing PSPOs.
They are right. Okay then.
Yeah.
Fine. Thank you. Thank you.
No more members? Everybody happy with that? Thanks for the report, Rich. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think before we move on, I've just had a message that I've been joined by Kate. As regards to the item 15, I'm also being told that leaving it till the 7th of December is too late. From that point of view, I think then I'm more inclined to put it onto this Thursday, at least to give us some time to have a look at, or for councillors to collate their views before we actually deal with the item. So if there's any member on would like to have an alternative to that, I can see Howard jumping up and down, and please let me know. Howard?
Chair, sorry, can I just interject? Do I need to be out of the room for this?
Yeah.
Yes, you do. Sorry.
But I'll wait while Andy goes, and it's no embarrassment for him. But right, basically, Chair.
Just confirm, Chair. Yes, Councillor Fewings is in the lobby.
Right.
I appreciate what they're saying about December being too late, but I also feel Thursday night's far too soon on the same basis. You know, crimes, 2 days compared to 62 days or whatever. But can we not have something in between, a further extraordinary meeting if need be? Because to be honest, I'm going to raise the same point with the SPD for developer contributions and things on Thursday night. So if we could put them both back, say, till perhaps middle of November or something like that, give us a bit of a chance to look at them both thoroughly, then I'd feel happy with that. I don't feel happy at putting it back 2 nights on a night where at this stage we've still got other loads to do as well. Yeah, unless you're prepared at this stage to say you'll do the same with the other ones. Thank you,
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, we go from 2 very heavy meetings, the end of October, and then we're nothing at all till 7th of December. I think there's a conversation perhaps to be had after this meeting with democracy about having something in November that sweeps up the things that need to be done. Okay, we'll take that on board. I'll chat to you tomorrow about it, Chris. That's okay.
Okay, sir.
Cheers. Okay, moving along to scrutiny review groups. Now, just to...
Excuse me, Chair. Is Councillor Fewings back in the meeting?
Oh, thank you.
Councillor Fewings is back in the meeting, Chair. Yes.
Thank you. Sorry.
Just to let you know.
I'm sorry.
Just to let you know, Andy, we'll have a meeting later on, and you won't be able to sit in that one either. Okay. Scrutiny review groups. We've got a lot going on with COVID, and normally this time of year we have a scrutiny review group programme. But of course, like with all things, the COVID has put that to one side. Nevertheless, we have been doing some work. I don't expect the review group that Marcus Johnson was chairing, and Marcus is here with us, will have come to a point where it can actually report back unless Marcus has anything to say on it. I know you've actually had at least one meeting. There's also the other review group that was taking place. I think Howard and B were going to a presentation on that one. Whether you've anything to come in and say on that one. It would be normally that we set a programme for this time of year, but it did occur to me as I was reading the homeless report, and it was actually mentioned by Councillor Fewings early on, that if we're going to do something that runs over into 2021, rather than pull out the forms as we always used to do, I think it would be a good idea to have an ongoing. The original homeless group wasn't a scrutiny group, it was commissioned by the executive at the time, and we weren't privy to that. I don't know how that's gone or whether it's finished, but it did strike me as a good idea to have an ongoing scrutiny group working on the homeless project and assisting with that going on into the new year, apart from the two groups we've got already. Now, I appreciate members' feelings on that, and also from the two groups that we've got doing scrutiny projects at the moment. If there's any feedback, then can we have the feedback? Or if it's a case of it's an ongoing situation, then we'll wait for that coming in. Can I ask Marcus, first of all, where you are with yours?
Yes, Chair, we've had a preliminary meeting. There's another meeting in the diary for the 11th of November. So hopefully we're going to get things moving. Okay,
thank you very much for that. The briefing that Howard and B went to. Are you there, Ben?
I didn't go.
Oh, you didn't go, all right.
Just B went on her own.
Your idea, yeah. But
just remind me what it was about.
The one that I didn't turn up from about 9:30 on a Tuesday morning or something, or a Monday morning.
It was about the supplementary planning documents.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what it was all about, sort of thing. Yeah. Unfortunately, as I said, there was lots of confusion about it. Yeah. I can't just remember. We had a discussion around it, but I can't just remember, Andy.
Right.
Exactly.
Paul Gassel sent out a couple of emails saying something was cancelled, and I thought it was that meeting, so I didn't turn up. But it was another meeting he cancelled, but got totally confused by it, so I never showed up. So I do apologise to B in particular. She's the only one that did bother to turn up.
Okay, we'll chat outside the meeting, B, and perhaps put something back for a future meeting.
Yeah, and I'll look past at my notes. Yeah, that's great.
Good.
Thank you.
Has anybody got any comment on having the having a subcommittee based on looking at the homeless situation as it goes on through into the new year?
I thought that really the working group, my understanding, and I think Wilma might have gone, but my understanding was that it was felt that, and I don't know whether the new executive will feel the same, but that working group that was brought together would continue to work and look and look at it really. So I don't know what you want to do about that, Andy, where that's changed or not, but that was the assumption I think that we all went in on, that we would see it through.
Fine. I mean, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, and if you feel that it's fit for purpose and working okay, then fine.
Much. Yeah, I think so. I'll look to others who are on the working group with me to see what they think. Yeah.
Well, Gordon's got his thumb up, so Gordon, he thinks it's okay.
Chair, Councillor Peters was requested to speak.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Hope you don't mind me using this opportunity to speak. It's just that I know that the Calico working group is obviously still ongoing. I didn't attend the one that was a couple of weeks ago because I was under the impression that my new role meant that I wasn't able to attend as a member of Scrutiny, but with Chair's discretion, I would like to continue going along to those working groups as it was my proposal that put forward, and just to give my contributions as an ordinary member at those.
Well, Marcus is chairing that, but I'm sure Marcus won't have any objection to that.
Thank you.
Chair, we've said that Leanne can come along. You should have had an invite today. If you haven't, get hold of Paul Gastrell and ask for one, or come back to me if you have any problems.
I will check that. Thank you very much.
Splendid. And we'll leave the homeless working group. Let's put it this way: if we find that the one that's actually running at the moment has got any problems and wants to come back to scrutiny, then we'll pick it up and assist wherever we can. I think that's the best way forward. Okay. That takes us on to item 18, work programme 1920.
Chair, I'll briefly take this item. The work programmes there for members to see. Apologies that the current rescheduled meetings or meetings that are taking place this week are not recorded in the programme, but as we've had a discussion, or members have had a discussion earlier this evening on the programme for this meeting and subsequent meetings, that those discussions will take place outside of this meeting. Obviously, in terms of the next scheduled meeting after Thursday, in terms of 7th of December, the items there are included on the work programme that will be considered at that meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Chris. And that concludes the business for this evening. Thanks everybody for your attendance. It's been a good meeting, and I'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah,
Safe going
Thank you,
into
Chair.
the kitchen.